Invitational week is for me, and especially this one because of losing my dad in April. We're going to really make this great, and we've been lucky that a lot of people have helped us out with it. But one of the things we're going to do, and people will be able to bid on, is a couple of months of advertising on this show. So there you go. There's another reason to come out there. And we put this on Facebook. Again, you don't have to be in the tournament to bid on silent auction items. In fact, we have the dinner for 8 at Spurrier's restaurant with me and Coach Spurrier. The me part, maybe it's not that good, but Coach Spurrier part's good. And so people are going to want to come out. We've already gotten people swearing they're going to bid really high on that. But there's all kinds of, the stuff is going to be ridiculous. The memorabilia, the foursome at TPC, and Billy Horschel may stop and play with you and stuff like that, all that and more. But we'll leave that as it is. I hope all the mothers had a great Mother's Day out there. Certainly you guys do incredible work. Being a mother is not as easy as being a dad. Just face it. First of all, you got to have the baby. That's a big part of it. But obviously, my mom died several years ago, and I miss her every day. But I try to make my wife feel good about things, and we went to a really nice place and had a good day. So that was good. And while we were there, we found out that Florida had won in softball. So we had that going for us. So that was a good drive home talking about that, and then getting all the details. And I'll get to that in a moment. So you can guess who the Adams Ribco Gator of the weekend is. Go ahead and guess. I'm not, I want to save that for that part of it. But that was huge, and I tell you what, it really did. And this was a really good weekend for the Gators in all sports. And I think now they're at 251 SEC championships, which is by far the most of anybody. But certainly to win the way they did. And Tim Walton, just the guy is amazing. How his teams just win and win and win. And they win in different ways. They win with dominant pitching sometimes. Excuse me, I'm a little bit under the weather, so I may be clearing my throat a couple of times. But they win with dominant pitching at times. They win with big bats at times. They win with clutch hitting. It was amazing to watch all that happen. I went to the game Saturday, which was kind of fun. I hadn't been to a game all year, and because I don't have to go to games. And I said, this is stupid. This is a big game. Go. It's a beautiful day. I had so much fun at the game. And that was the game they won in the middle, 4-0 game. I didn't go to the first walk-off and didn't go to the second walk-off. I went to the 4-0 game. Now, that was not good judgment on my part, but of course, that's the game I wanted to go to. But Tim Walton now up to 40 wins. Also with baseball, what happened over the weekend after that terrible loss Thursday, we talked about how more of the same, and it looked like it was more of the same again Friday, but they come back and they win, and Kendrick Kalilau, again with the walk-off, kept his shirt on this time after it. So Florida now 18th in RPI. Remember I was talking about how low they were in RPI? They were like around 30. But going on the road and beating Kentucky twice was big for them. Of course, they have a big series with Georgia on coming up this weekend, and then a huge series at Arkansas as well after that. Men's tennis advanced. Got past USF, so they're in the Sweet 16 now. They'll be down at Lake Nona. They don't play till next Monday, which I don't understand the scheduling there. And also want to give a shout out to Ricky Castillo, who played on the Walker Cup team that for Florida, or not for Florida, for the United States, and they won. I think he was 2-0, but I may be off on that, and we'll try to get there. All right, we got a great show for you. You can watch us on Facebook or YouTube. Listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, any of the 39 platforms where you can find this podcast or your favorite podcast. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. We are going to be joined right now by Travis McGriff, one of the great Florida wide receivers of all time. A little bit later in the show, we continue our tour around the SEC with Chris Lee from VandySports.com. I'm looking forward to that. I don't know Chris, to be honest with you. Chris was recommended to me by somebody I'm I'm curious to see what he's got to say. I mean, what can you say about Vanderbilt football? But we'll find out. I know one guy who enjoyed playing against Vanderbilt football, and that's Travis McGriff, who joins us now. Trav, how are you doing?
I am good. Pat, can you hear me?
I can hear you perfectly.
All right. The Zoom stuff can be tricky. I just want to make sure you can hear me.
Well, we've been through the gamut with all the great Gators who have played here, including your dad. And last week we had Dallas Baker on, and Judd Davis and Shane Edge on at the same time. Had split screens. Danny's been on. We've had pretty much everybody, and great to talk to you. Well, you know, for you, that senior year has got to be something. We're going to talk a little bit about your career to start off. That senior year has got to be something that you still look back on with incredible amount of pride.
You do. You know, that year was extremely special, but you kind of look at it in the lens of your entire career, and there were lots of special moments throughout the entire thing. But I think the senior year was kind of a culmination of a lot of things. Obviously, Pat, as you are well aware, I played in an era of a lot of great wide receivers. You know, we had lots and lots of guys. When I was a freshman, Pat, the top 5 guys were Chris Doring, Riedel Anthony, Ike Hilliard, Jacquez Green, and me. That was the 5. And there's a great picture that ran in the Gainesville Sun, and they took it. We have the ball. We're in 5 wides, and you can see everybody in the frame, and we're playing Florida State. It was the 95 game. And you look at that offense, and you just think, wow, you know, Jeff Mitchell's at center, and Donnie Young and Jason Odom, and then you got the 5 wides and Danny. So playing in that group was great. The downside of that was you had to wait your turn a little bit to be the guy. And Chris and Ike both had amazing years in 95, and then Ike and Riedel had great years in 96, and Quez had a huge year in 97, and then it was kind of my turn to be up to bat in 98. The thing, Pat, I'll tell you, though, that still haunts me a bit to this day about that 98 season is, you know, we ended up going 9-2 in the regular season, losing to Florida State, but Tennessee was the first one I was thinking of in overtime in Knoxville. Tennessee goes on to win the national title in 98, and we had 7 turnovers that game, if memory serves. I think 2 of them inside the 5. And that was a team that went on to win the national title, so we should have beat them, and then we lose to Florida State in Tallahassee.
You lost to Marcus Alton. That right there
exactly,
is enough
with Marcus Alton. And so when you look back, I've actually had a couple conversations in the last year or so with Coach Burry about this. That 98 team was really, really close to being a national title type team. And that just would have made it that much more sweet. So somehow as a competitive athlete, you tend to focus more on what didn't go right than all that did go right. But nonetheless, it was a fantastic year and lots of wonderful memories for sure.
I'll tell you a funny story about that 95 picture. I have it up on my wall.
Yeah.
And it was my idea to go to the press box and take that kind of a shot. John Moran, I believe, took it. And when you look at the number of NFL players, guys who played in the NFL on both sides of the ball, in that picture, it was mind-boggling to think of the talent that was on that field that day.
Pat, when you look at the picture, it's an NFL game.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an NFL game when you look at that snapshot. And then, for that matter, when you look at the roster, you look at all the young players and who was backing up the guys that are on the field. Those were the absolute heydays of the Florida State rivalry. I could be wrong on this, maybe the 97 game, but I'm not sure I ever played in a Florida State game where we both weren't ranked in the top 5. In 97 in the Swamp, we may have been 7 or 8, so I may be wrong on this, but you know, one way or the other, the national title always kind of hung in the balance during those mid 90, late 90 years. And it was just so fun, so much talent.
What was it like for you, though, to come, you know, from local school and everything, and And obviously Chris Doring was there, who had been at PK, and he had to walk on. But for you, did he kind of show you the ropes and let you know how things were going, or was that just something you naturally were able to do?
It was interesting. I certainly knew of Chris growing up, but my first 2 years of high school, I started at Buchholz. So I actually never went to school at PK Yonge with Chris. Knew him, but not really well. So when I got to PK Yonge, he was already at UF. I actually knew Willie Jackson better than I knew Chris because I had grown up playing with Terry. Terry and I, same age, and grew up playing, little league together and then played together in high school. So I was really more familiar with Chris, but, certainly between both of those guys, Willie and Chris, to see guys that had gone to PK Yonge, playing for the same coach I did in John Clifford, go on to Florida and both have such tremendous success. Willie was a scholarship guy, and Chris walked on and then quickly earned a scholarship and obviously had a fantastic career. And then Chris became a very good friend, and we actually played together with the Denver Broncos for 2 years as well. But it was great having those guys around and kind of paving the road before you got there, for sure.
The number 1357, that is significant because it's the most yards anybody's ever caught in a single season at the University of Florida. I mean, I think he had 70 catches that year, right?
70, yep.
I mean, and Doug throwing you most of those passes, but why do you think you were able to get open so much? Because you didn't have the bevy of talented receivers. You had some good receivers, but not like you did in 94, 95, 96. Yeah,
it's true. It's a great question, Pat. In those other years, as a defense, you had to pick your poison. There was so much talent everywhere. You really couldn't focus on any one person. And it helped get everybody open. In 98, the top four guys were myself, Nafis Karim, Daryl Jackson, and Travis Taylor. Daryl was a third-round pick, and Travis Taylor was a first-round. So there was a lot of talent, but the production and at least the talent at the college level was certainly not the same as I'd say it was in 95 or 96. And this is kind of a strange statistic to remember, but I always remember this. I think through the entire Spurrier era, at least when I played, my catches in yards relative to the second receiver who was tops in catches and yards was the biggest difference of anybody in that era. So I think Travis Taylor was second, and I think he maybe had 35, 40 catches and around 700 yards. So it was almost double. In 95, Chris had a 1,000-yard season. I think Ike was right there at 1,000. In 96, Riedel had a 1,000-yard season, and then Ike was close at 900, and Quez was probably somewhere around 5 or 6. The ball was spread around a lot more. And I'm really not sure why it worked out that way, Pat. In 98, Doug and Jesse were rotating. I had always spent a lot of time with those guys in the offseason throwing the ball, and they were both good, close friends. And so maybe that had something to do with it. Maybe there's a level of comfort when they're not quite sure, do I go here, do I go there, if it's in doubt. Maybe they just felt more comfortable coming my way because we had spent so much time together. But I really don't know. And then I think you certainly have to give some credit to Coach Spurrier, the scheme, his ability to move you around a little bit and keep defenses off balance and not putting you in the exact same spot every time where they can just double up on you or load the defense your way. So there's probably a lot of things factored into it.
Did you think that Jesse Palmer would one day become the Bachelor and be on Good Morning America?
What's funny about that, Pat, is Jesse stuttered in college. He would stutter, and you probably know this because you interviewed him plenty of times. Jesse talked very fast, and he would sometimes stutter in the huddle. And somehow when you turn the lights on, whether it's The Bachelor or Good Morning America on ESPN, he is smooth as silk and does a fantastic job. But in that huddle, he would stumble and bumble a little bit.
I had heard that they hired, or maybe Steve did, or but somebody actually hired him like a speech coach because it was a problem in the huddle. He would say something, and guys would go, "What?"
Yeah. I don't remember them hiring anybody to work with him on that, but it was an issue. He stuttered and he talked really, really fast. And then there was a little bit of that Canadian accent dialect, and you kind of throw all that into a pot, and he could be hard to understand at times.
Travis, how much did it help you? I think this is a pretty obvious answer. To have your dad having played the position, having played it at a high level, obviously was a great player at Florida, and then you guys. Well, I think you went to lunch on Fridays, or was it Thursdays? And you would talk, and you would kind of talk about things, and just to have that guy to lean on.
Yeah, it was great. It was special, Pat. And that's good memory by you. We did used to go to lunch every Friday on game days, and he was my father, so like any parent would support their child. But I think what made it really unique was because he had been a player, and really, Pat, also been a coach. He coached at Florida late 70s, early 80s. And so we would talk all the time when I was playing, and certainly when I was growing up in the house. And I always trusted his perspective because he had coached. I never felt like he was talking to me as a parent. I felt like he was talking to me as a former player, as a coach, or somebody that could have been evaluating me if I was playing in the early 80s. And so I trusted that. And there were endless amounts of conversation. They certainly weren't just on Fridays before game days about, what's going on or this or that. And I tell you, Pat, sometimes when I was still playing in the summer, sometimes in the spring, if I'd want to go run routes and I needed a quarterback and I couldn't find anybody, I could give him a call and he could still throw good enough that he'd come throw routes. And I remember there was sometimes Lawrence Wright would be out there covering, or Weary'd be out there covering, and Lee'd show up, and Lee was the quarterback, and he'd throw. So that was fun. I mean, it was almost like having a really, really good assistant coach that was your dad and sort of personal coach in the background. So very special having that. The
game where you had 222 yards against South Carolina, did you have any idea where you were yardage-wise, and you were going over 200 yards?
Yes, but not really until the end. If memory serves, I hit the 200 mark kind of late in the third quarter. And here's kind of what during games like that. It was just kind of flowing. And there were a lot of balls coming at me, some that were supposed to, and then there were some that really weren't supposed to, scramble plays, ball ends up coming your way, it ends up working out. And you just kind of know that, I don't know where I am statistics-wise, but I'm getting a lot of action. The ball is coming this way, and I don't know how many catches or yards, but it's got to be a lot. And then somebody came to me in the third and said, hey, you're over 200. And I remember, Alvarez's record being 232 or whatever that was, I think with 15 catches. And I think I had 13 for 222 or 215, whatever it was at the time, thinking almost, we might be able to go way past this because we have another quarter. And then that was kind of it. I think my last catch was a touchdown in the southeast corner of the end zone, and then pretty soon after that we all got pulled. But it was a pretty unique day. It was great, and the fact that it was my last day in the swamp, and the last catch in the swamp was a touchdown, and seniors, we never lost in the swamp, and it was homecoming. There was just a lot of sort of storylines around that game, and it was special.
Was that the touchdown that you threw the ball out of the end zone?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I thought it was the north, but it was the southeast end zone?
Southeast, okay. Right by the visitors' tunnel. It was a little fade route. And this is what kind of day it was, Pat. I had sprained my ankle on a little tunnel screen, picked up about 15, 18 yards. and I had sprained my ankle pretty good, not terrible, but pretty good late in the second. And, we had a big game coming up with Florida State the next week, but there was no way I was coming out of the game. So fast forward to this play, I'm the wide guy on the left side of the field, and my right ankle was starting to really bother me. And I was getting press coverage from the South Carolina defensive back, and I kind of knew in my head, I'm going to have a problem releasing off of this guy right now. My feet, I can't really drive off of this foot, and this is the one I really need to stick in the ground and explode off of. And I swear the guy, if I could have scripted what I needed him to do to get off clean, he did it. He sort of jumped inside. He shot his hands at me, and it kind of allowed me to sort of be physical with him and pull him in and sort of slingshot myself by. And Doug gave me a great little throw and walked in the end zone, and kind of bringing our little Friday lunch with the old man full circle. We had just been talking the day before about Carlos's last touchdown at Florida and throwing the ball up in the stands. And Dad said, hey, if you get a chance, maybe do it. I didn't think about it again. I really thought, what are the odds of that? I didn't think about it again. And somehow right then when I went in the end zone, conversation dawned on me, and I just kind of stopped and chunked it up in the end zone and got a flag and came off, and Coach Burrow was confused and, what in the world did you do? Were you celebrating? I said, no, Coach, you just threw it up in the stands. He said, don't worry about it. I was going to tell you to do something like that anyways. The super irony to that story is, Pat, about 5 years ago, I found the guy that had the ball. We were coaching kids' flag football teams, and he said, hey, I actually have that ball. I was the one that caught it. I said, no way, I don't believe you. So he brought the ball to one of the kids' games, and, like all those balls do, it had ingrained on it Gators 98. So I actually have that ball back. It's kind of ironic.
Did you get it all painted up now, or?
I need to get it painted. I haven't. It's collecting dust somewhere in the house, in a closet somewhere.
By the way, I hate to ask this question because I asked Dallas Baker this question, and the answer was pretty harsh. I asked him where his championship rings are, and it turned out he had to sell them all because he lost a bunch of money.
Oh, wow.
So, and he was very emotional about it. He wants to get them back at some point. But, I mean, I'm just trying to think how many you have, how many championship rings you have, because you got national champion.
Yeah, the national from 96 and then 3 SEC titles. So my redshirt freshman year of 94, which, I was on the team, but I wasn't really contributing to that team. I was redshirted. And then 95 and 96. So 3 SECs and a national. I actually have them in a little display case. It's not displayed. It's not actually out. It's kind of in a closet in our little home office. But I do need to pull it out one day and get it displayed. Every once in a while, my son will go in there and take them out, and I'll find one in his room or, in some odd place on a counter somewhere. So hopefully I can keep track of them.
Well, let's talk a little bit about when you went to the NFL and you went to Denver, and for you that experience must have been. I mean, I know you got to play, I think 38 games in the NFL. What was that like for you?
It was great. I mean, like a lot of guys' NFL experience, you kind of always wish it went better unless you have the 10-year storybook career. Was a 3rd-round pick and was drafted to Denver the year after Elway retired, after their 2nd Super Bowl. So pretty much the whole team was still intact. Terrell Davis was there. Shannon Sharp was there. Most of the defense was there, minus Steve Atwater. So it was a really good team, a very professional culture. I was there for 3 years, and for the majority of that time was the 3rd guy, and was on the field a good bit, but really wasn't catching many balls and being very productive. And if you're not the prototype guy, Pat, as you well know, you better be productive, because they're looking for a reason to probably move on from you. And the way we were playing at the time, we were a run-heavy team. We played in a lot of 2 tight end sets, had a really strong running game with Terrell Davis, and so spreading the field like teams do now really was not our MO. So when I got there, I never really thought, wow, this is a fantastic fit for me. Great team, great coach, great culture, all those kind of things. But most guys in the NFL, unless you're that prototype of prototypes, you kind of need to be in the right spot at the right time. And it wasn't quite that for me. But with all that being said, caught balls, had the experience, played the NFL playoffs. So there's really not much that I didn't get to experience. Just wasn't quite as long or as big as you would have hoped. You kind of always hope you'll match your college production and play a long, long time. But there certainly are great players out there that were a lot better than me that never got to play in that league for one day. So I'm thankful that I did get to play there at all.
And you did. I mean, is there an Arena Football League Hall of Fame? Because you might be a candidate for that.
That league, Pat, was a lot of fun. I did that for 3 years, and it was a lot of fun. I don't know if you've been to any games in person, but it's an explosive game.
You caught 45 touchdowns. That's fun.
Yeah. And, I actually think there is. Unfortunately, the league no longer exists, which is really disappointing because it was exciting, and it was kind of the NASCAR crowd of football. Right. It was a little bit of a different animal. And I got to tell you, when I started playing, it wasn't that I didn't take it serious, but you kind of thought, this is a step down. This is a step down. It's not the same caliber athletes. And what I learned quickly is that it's a very different game. And you can't really compare the two. There are guys in the NFL that really would not be very good at football, at arena football. And then there's certainly guys that play arena football that they couldn't play in the NFL. It's just a different game. Angles are different. The schemes are very, very different because you're minus 3 people on both sides on a field that's 25 yards wide and 50 yards long. So it's not half of a normal field. It's a quarter of a normal field, which is really small.
Real quick, because before we let you go, just want to see how the family's doing. How's everybody doing?
Everybody's great. Kids are growing up fast. My oldest, Keel, is going to be an 8th grader next year at Canapa Hall, and he's big into sports, football, basketball, runs track. And my daughter, Landry's gymnastics and competitive cheer and thinking about doing the volleyball stuff. So we're running around and chasing them to all their activities, but it's a lot of fun.
You got to get Lee out there to throw him some patterns, man.
He still does, man. Every once in a while, he gets out there and throws it around.
Travis, so great, man. Great to talk to you, and always great to catch up and see how things are going and relive what was a great career at the University of Florida. And certainly fun to talk to you, buddy. And we will check you down the road, all right?
Sounds good, Pat. I appreciate you having me, and you were a part of all those years and all those memories. You were right in the middle of it, so I appreciate that.
Well, thanks, buddy. We'll see you.
All right, see you, man.
We have to take a break, and when we come back, we'll be joined by Chris Lee from VandySports.com and Southeastern14.com. We're going to talk some Vandy football, and I know, don't turn the dial. That will make it interesting. I promise you. I'm going to ask him tough questions about Vanderbilt. But thanks so much to Travis McGriff for joining us here on Another Dooley Noted Podcast. We'll be right back after this break. You can get your favorite alcoholic brands from ABC Fine Wine and Spirits delivered right to your door. ABC Delivers is available in Tampa, Orlando, Jacksonville, and all of the Southeast Florida. Earn ABC points for coupons and free bottles through abcdelivers.com. It's powered by FedEx Same Day City, and you're going to love the price. Free with a $50 purchase for the first 7 miles. So wine, spirits, beer, and everything you need to celebrate. Get it delivered. Shop abcdelivers.com.
Titan MRI, North Central Florida's premier independent diagnostic testing MRI facility. At Titan MRI, we're focused on you, the patient, having a great customer experience. Our MRI equipment is modern and 75% quieter than any unit in its class. And our MRI unit has one of the largest openings of any of the newer high-strength MRI units, which allows comfortable scanning for potential claustrophobic and larger patients. At Titan MRI, we look forward to serving you.
This is Pat Dooley, and I want to tell you about my friends at the Gainesville Quarterback Club. I'm a member and you should be too. It's the oldest Gator booster club in the world and a great place to meet new friends, network with prominent business people, and hear a great collection of speakers, including Dan Mullen, throughout the football season. Go ahead and give John Stevens a call at 352-222-8516 or sign up on the website, quarterbackclub.org. Thanks so much to our title sponsors, ABC Fine Wine and Spirits and Titan MRI, and to our pick sponsor, Leonardo's of Millhopper. You can find us live on Facebook and YouTube or listen at your leisure on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, or wherever you find all your favorite podcasts. I'm excited to continue this podcast and to have your company on board as a sponsor. If you're interested in being part of the show, email me at patrickdooley54@gmail.com or give me a call, 352-317-3444. All right, and welcome back to Another Dooley Noted Podcast presented by Titan MRI and ABC Fine Wine and Spirits. It's a great pleasure as we go around the SEC to talk to Chris Lee, who from VandySports.com and Southeastern14.com, which is kind of a new podcast that you've started, and it sounds interesting to get that. And at first I was like, why Southeastern 14? Oh, there's 14 schools. That's why.
Yes, it is. The concept behind that is football is very well covered in this league, as you and I know. But I have thought that basketball and baseball were very undercovered for what's a very good league. I think the SEC, it's fashionable to downgrade the hoops, but I think it's better than people really give it credit for being. And I think in baseball, it's the best league in the country. I think they're better in baseball is the SEC than football. We feel like that's really undercovered. So we're going to cover football too, but we have launched a site there, and there's a site too, Southeastern14.com, where you can get just about daily content of what's going on. And we did some power rankings this morning and some weekend recaps. And just if you like your SEC baseball covered on a bigger level, I think you'll really love what we're doing.
Which fans do here. They're very much into baseball, and it, you know, when you say that, and I was thinking about this the other day, when I go, who's the SEC authority on basketball, SEC basketball? I'm like, there isn't one. I don't think there is one person you've got people you can go to for football, like the Tony Barnharts and Chris Lowe's of the world, but for basketball, there really isn't anybody.
Yeah, I would like to say I think Blake Lovell, who works with me, is tremendous at it. And Blake has done umpteen podcasts, and he and I have written for Chris Dortch at Blue Ribbon. Chris, of course, would be one of the names on the short list. Yeah, I mean, so I'm not going to take away what's due to Chris, but Blake has done a tremendous job, and just the way that he stays updated with basketball every day. I think if you are an SEC junkie, you'll love hearing him.
I'm writing his name down right now, okay, for when we get to basketball season, so we'll be able to get him on. But we want to start off, we'll get to baseball, but I do want to start off with football. And, of course, it's been an interesting dynamic. The Derek Mason era did not go well, but they gave him 7 years. I think some of us were a little surprised when they let him go, and yet surprised that he was even there for this year. But in the pandemic, we thought he might survive. But we found out that the pandemic wasn't keeping any coach's job. No. It was pretty amazing. Like fired. You know, they just didn't care. But you know, why do you think well, first of all, this is a two-part question. How did James Franklin win there, and why has nobody else really been able to win there? I mean, they've had 2 other winning seasons, I think, since '80.
Well, that's a complicated one, Pat. I will say this: the history is that no coach can win at Vanderbilt, right? But you back up and start looking at the coaches they've had. Derek Mason, I think, good coordinator as a head coach. I don't think so. I just don't think he is. And I haven't seen good head coaches, Tim Corbin, James Franklin. He just does not cut of that mold. You've got to be a CEO. James was a CEO. So you look back through some of the other coaches they've had, you know, Woody Woodenhofer was not that. Rod Dallauer, I don't think, was that. Bobby Johnson, to a degree, was, but his offense was stuck in the 1950s a lot of the times, even when they had Jay Cutler. So I think that James was a guy, first of all, he didn't take no for an answer on anything, and he really pushed them in ways they haven't been pushed, which I think at Vandy you have to do. But I would say some of their head coaching choices were pretty questionable at times too. And of course, resources, that's the thing. It's just, I don't even know, facilities is hard, but when you don't have priority registration for kids for classes and a lot of stuff like that too, that makes it tougher. There's a lot of low-hanging fruit at Vanderbilt that if they ever took care of, I think you would see the product on the field get better. But it's a tough job for the reasons that everybody knows. And James was just phenomenal. I mean, you can say what you want about the guy for a lot of things, and certainly there were some criticisms in the way that he left here, but the guy knew how to coach, and it showed.
You didn't mention Robbie Caldwell. I mean, there was one of the greatest SEC media days performance in the history of
yes. And one of the best people that I've ever met. But again, and Robbie's a fantastic offensive line coach. You can look at what he's doing at Clemson, and
right.
I'm really happy for him. He's one of the favorite, probably 2 or 3 people I've ever covered on this beat. But again, I just don't think Robbie was cut out to be a head coach. That takes a whole different set of things than you have to have as a coordinator, as a position coach. And I just don't think Robbie had those things, but maybe not these things.
Well, let's talk a little bit about facilities and all this. And obviously, there's been movement in terms of hiring a new president and athletic director and getting things trying to go in the right direction. But I mean, I still haven't heard anything that's gone forward in terms of making that a more it's never going to be an SEC stadium, right?
Right.
But just at least an impression of an SEC stadium.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think that when Malcolm Turner was there, one of the things that was on the table was a whole new stadium.
Right.
And people at the school didn't like that. They really undercut the guy and ran him off. But what they're doing now, they've announced a $300 million commitment. A lot of that is going to be to football. Some of that is going to be to basketball. What they will do is they will have, I think, eventually a brick and mortar building in the closed end zone of the stadium. So they'll cut out some capacity there. They'll do some nicer things in the open end zone. I think have some temporary luxury box type things and maybe a little bit of seating there where they don't really have it. I think eventually they will build a suite on the opposite side of the press box that also will overlook the baseball stadium.
Right.
So you can have that as a dual purpose thing. I don't think that that's necessarily on the drawing board yet, but I've heard some talk about it. And I think eventually they'll get to maybe some chairback seating, some things that they need. One of the issues there, and you and I sit in the press box, so we don't know what it's like for fans, but one of the issues that I hear, and you probably have heard from Florida fans, is just the flow of traffic. It takes forever to get in and out. And so they're going to redo food. They're going to have it at a concourse, I think at one of the 4 ends of the stadium. I think that'll help with some traffic and things. But their plan first was to take things that impact student athletes and recruiting, make that first priority, and the stadium would be in a phase 2 or 3 down the line eventually, so I'm told.
You know, I saw that Presbyterian hired a guy who doesn't believe in punting, and I was like, that's what Vanderbilt should have done. They should hire somebody that's just throwing the ball all over the place and doing something crazy. They didn't do that. They have a new coach, and he, obviously with Vanderbilt ties. And what's your impression so far, Ben?
Hard to say. I mean, we didn't get to go much of spring practice. In the spring game, I saw a defense that didn't have a lot of talent, and I don't know how he's going to work around that. But the thing is, we talked about coaches who work there, right? And Tim Corbin is one, and James Franklin is another. And it just starts with sort of the organized CEO type mind. I think that is what sold Vanderbilt on Clark Lee, the fact that he is also close to Tim Corbin. He was picking Tim Corbin's brain and struck up a friendship with him, I think, as a player there, and later as like a GA or when he was getting into coaching. And so I think when you look at Vanderbilt and you say, well, what's worked here? Tim Corbin's the thing that's worked beyond anything, and I think that Tim had input on the process, and I think that just the way that he can see it from a top down, and he's made it very clear, it's not going to be a quick rebuild, and I agree with him. So I think the CEO-type mindset is how he ended up getting the job.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they are this year, because I know that they still have issues on offense, and as you said, not a lot of talent on defense. It's got to be like, I think Vanderbilt has a built-in baseball advantage in terms of the way they are able to manipulate scholarships, which if you can do that, great. But in football, it is such a disadvantage for them to go out and recruit and say, here's the stadium you're going to play in. Here's our winning tradition, which we haven't had a winning season since James Franklin was there. It's really got to be difficult. It's almost like a great player's got to say, I'm going to be the guy that breaks the mold, but I don't know if that's ever going to happen.
Well, here's what's interesting. The talent around here locally in the high school area has gotten a lot better in the last 20 years. Perhaps not coincidentally, you've had a lot of Titans who stay in the area, have children, and their children end up being football stars, and that's helped a lot. But the thing is, you go to that stadium on game day, and unless they've really got it going, the first thing you notice is that if they're playing anybody in the league, they're going to be outdrawn.
Right.
The second thing is sometimes it's been very uncompetitive, not just losing, but losing badly. And I've been on the field at kickoff a lot of times and sat through games and just thought, how do you sell a prospect on this when you're getting beaten by 30 and 40 points and opposing fans are 75% of the stadium? I think it's been really hard for them to capitalize on what has been a better crop of local talent, because those are the kids who are coming to games and see it. You see them win recruiting battles with kids from Texas, sometimes in California, and places that are further away, that's not in their face all the time. So they won a battle with a kid named Langston Patterson, who goes to Christ Presbyterian Academy. No, look, he's a high 3-star kid, but he had some pretty good offers. And I thought when they got the commitment from that this spring, I thought that was significant, because that was Clark Lee coming in and selling a kid locally. He'd seen all the stuff. His brother went to Clemson. There were a million reasons not to go to Vandy if you're Langston Patterson. And so, to me, winning those battles in your backyard, that's going to be a big start, and he needs to win more.
Chris, I haven't really studied their schedule this year, but what would you put the over-under for wins at? I pretty much know who they play. I know the 6 teams in the division they have to play, and that's not going to be easy as it is. Who are their I'm not non-conference, but their cross division?
Ole Miss is their permanent opponent. They've also got Mississippi State.
Okay.
And then out of the league, they've got East Tennessee State, Stanford, Colorado State, and UConn. So
they could win
there's some winnable games in there, but again, the talent is going to be the issue.
All right, before we let you go, I'd like to talk to you about baseball, which has become an amazing race here in the SEC. Florida looked out of it, and they lose that first game to Kumar Rocker, and they come back and win the next 2, and we're all stunned by that. And now it's tightened up. This is going to be a great race these last 2 weekends, isn't it?
It really is. And you look at the top, I thought that you could have a 4-team tie at the top. In fact, that's what I thought going into last weekend would eventually end up happening. Now, Mother Nature did everybody a favor, because there's nothing worse than on a Saturday, the day before, trying to look through at tiebreakers and what happens if this happens. Vanderbilt is missing a game now, so that will be easy. Vanderbilt will not be tied with anybody, but you've got Mississippi State, which I think has the advantage through scheduling. You've got Ole Miss kind of blew its shot this weekend by losing 2 in College Station, but you've got Arkansas, you've got Tennessee, and I think you could make the case that the top 4 teams in the country happen to be from the SEC. And oh, by the way, you've got the preseason number 1 team out there waiting a step behind, that's starting to win just at the right time.
Yeah, no doubt. They have been able to get it done. By the way, I think, did they shut Leiter down this weekend, or is it going to be this past weekend?
He was not on the 30 this weekend. He's usually their game 2 starter. They had to go with Patrick Riley. Of course, that was the thing that took the college baseball world by surprise, the announcement Saturday morning that he wasn't in the rotation. I'm hearing that there might be a little bit more rest for him. That the scuttlebutt that I've heard is it's not so much an injury as it is just maybe fatigue. But that's always scary too, because you look at Ole Miss, Gunnar Hoagland, one of those guys that's been shut down a little bit, and then he comes back for a good start, then throws 18 pitches, gets yanked. Alabama, good example. Connor Prelip had that happen back in March, and he's really thrown one inning since. So I'm not hearing the injury, but anytime you start seeing an ace who's had some high pitch counts being pulled late in the year, you start to be concerned a little bit.
Absolutely. Hey, Chris, it was great talking to you. We'll love to get you on again, especially when Florida and Vanderbilt are getting ready to duel and in football or basketball. But it was great to meet you. I mean, you were recommended to me by our friend Braid Gull, and great stuff. And so I really enjoyed it. Thanks a lot for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
All right, buddy. All right, we will take a break, and then we'll come back with all the fun things that we like to do. 3 things presented by Hand Law, the Leonardo's at Millhopper Quick Picks, and, of course, the Adams Ribco Gator of the Weekend, even though I think you pretty very much figured out who it was. We'll be right back on another Dooley Noted Podcast presented by Titan MRI and ABC Fine Wine and Spirits.
Titan MRI, North Central Florida's premier independent diagnostic testing MRI facility. At Titan MRI, we're focused on you, the patient, having a great customer experience. Our MRI equipment is modern and 75% quieter than any unit in its class. And our MRI unit has one of the largest openings of any of the newer high-strength MRI units, which allows comfortable scanning for potential claustrophobic and larger patients. At Titan MRI, we look forward to serving you.
Thanks so much to our title sponsors, ABC Fine Wine and Spirits and Titan MRI, and to our pick sponsor, Leonardo's of Millhopper. You can find us live on Facebook and YouTube, or listen at your leisure on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, or wherever you find all your favorite podcasts. I'm excited to continue this podcast and to have your company on board as a sponsor. If you're interested in being part of the show, email me at patrickdooley54@gmail.com or give me a call, 352-317-3444. You can get your favorite alcoholic brands from ABC Fine Wine and Spirits delivered right to your door. ABC Delivers is available in Tampa, Orlando, Jacksonville, and all of the Southeast Florida. Earn ABC points for coupons and free bottles through abcdelivers.com. It's powered by FedEx Same Day City, and you're going to love the price. Free with a $50 purchase for the first 7 miles. So wine, spirits, beer, and everything you need to celebrate. Get it delivered. Shop abcdelivers.com. And welcome back to another Dooley Noted Podcast. We'll be back with one more show this week, of course. And I'm pretty sure Robbie Andrews is definitely going to be on. I think Jeff Cardozo is going to be on. So we're going all local for that show. We'll talk a little Gator baseball with Jeff. And, of course, they've got a game Tuesday against Stetson at Stetson. So if you listen to the tailgate, Robbie, Andrew, and I will be on that show Tuesday because Jeff will be out of town. And then I'll not be on that show Friday because – I don't know. We got a lot of stuff to do on for this golf tournament coming up. Yeah, so, and then we'll crank things back up. It's going to be kind of like Monday of next week is going to be like a day off because the tournament will be behind me. And I feel like I can just kind of worry about the things that, and you guys know I worry about this thing a lot. I talk about it all the time. All right. It is time for 3 things presented by Hand Law, a Florida law firm which helps clients with government. You can learn more about Hand Law by visiting its website at www.hand.law or .hand.law or just hand.law, but it's .hand.law. Anyway, the firm is available for consultation in Jacksonville, and we appreciate them being a sponsor. We also are bringing on a new sponsor in July, and Shakow and Mercandani. We look forward to that. Got some more in the works, and as I said earlier on the show, we're going to put a couple of them up for a month, or there's like one for 2 months and one for a month, where you can bid on it to be an advertiser. So you get a bargain on that, right? I mean, it's free, but you have to bid on it. So you're going to pay, but you probably not going to pay the amount that we normally would ask. Am I making any sense? Maybe I need to start making sense. So it is time for 3 things presented by Hand Law. Number 1, had a great Mother's Day with Karen, and then they settled in. She and Kelsey settled in for a movie, and I said, if it's okay, I'm going to go watch the end of the golf. And it was a lot of fun to watch because of Rory McIlroy winning. And the raw emotion that he showed after winning. I mean, this is a guy who hadn't won in a couple of years. 2019, I think it was in Japan or China. Anyway, I think it was overseas. He's been close a couple times, and obviously we know that the PGA's right around the corner at Kiowa Island. I look forward to that. But just watching him, and let me tell you what, golf needs Rory McIlroy to be good. They need him to be in contention. There's no Tiger right now, and there may not be a Tiger again. We don't know whether Tiger's ever going to be the player he was. Even after all the stuff he went through, he still was really good and won the Masters. I mean, it's not like he was winning tournaments. But after this accident, I don't know if he's going to come back and at his age and everything. Regardless of whether he does or not, they need people like Rory McIlroy because McIlroy is interesting. He's funny. He says what he thinks. I love the guy. He's like probably my second favorite golfer behind Billy Horschel, of course. But I really enjoy watching him. So I sat there and I was riveted. And then he hit the ball. There's only one place you can't hit the ball on the last hole. He's got a 2-shot lead. And where does he hit it? Right there. Somehow it stays out of the water, but he does have to take a penalty shot because the lie's so bad he can't get a club on it. And if he does get a club on, it's just going to go in the water and hits a golf shot to win, to knock it up there, 2-putt and win the tournament. And just the raw emotion, though. I mean, he was welling up talking to Amanda Balionis afterwards. It was really cool. I got a little misty-eyed myself. Happy for him, and I hope this is him getting back and not doing what. Remember, he said that Bryson DeChambeau got in his head. He was trying to hit the ball like that, 1 billion miles, and he just needs to hit it. Hit it hard, hit it in the fairway, hit it a long way. You're still going to hit a long way. Sometimes these guys get obsessed with trying to hit it ridiculous lengths. That's not how you play good golf. Sometimes you can play good golf, but not all the time. Anyway, that's a lot of golf talk for you guys. I know that. All right, number 2. We've been trying to promote lacrosse here because we love Mandy O'Leary, and they've got a really good team. I asked somebody after they won the AAC championship, the tournament championship. They'd already won the regular season, won their 7th straight. I asked somebody who was over there and who knows this kind of stuff. I go, is Florida really good, or is everybody else in the league really bad? And he just laughed, and I think his laughter told me the league's not good, but Florida really is good. And it's kind of the reason that Florida lacrosse kind of gets shoved to the side, because there's no conference championship that we care about. You can't count. Like, Florida's got 251 SEC championships. How many AAC championships? I don't know, 4, 3, 2, whatever it is. But it's a different conference, and I think that that's not going to change. Got to deal with it. But the good news is Florida won it, and they found out they're going to host for regionals. They are the 6th seed. The teams coming in here will be Mercer, Jacksonville, and Vandy. Florida will advance from that, I promise you. So good for them. It's just a shame that they don't get the competition they need to go forward after that Sweet 16. And that's where it gets really tough. And you're not getting steeled by playing good teams. Now, they've tried to go play good teams, and of course, in the pandemic year, it was really hard. There's no question about it. All right, that's number 2. Number 3, interesting story with the Kentucky Derby winner, who is now tested positive for steroids. I think that horse's name was Alex Rodriguez. No, it was Sammy Sosa. No, it was Mark McGuire. Anyway, the interesting thing was after he won, I can't remember the horse's name, Medina something, Spirit, yeah. Because I'm had no dog. I had no horse in the race. I mean, I didn't care. I wasn't betting on it. But I'm watching it, and afterwards they're like, everybody is always downgrading Baffert. They're always saying, well, he's doing all these things wrong and he's cheating, all this stuff. But here he's got the champion again. And then they found out that there was cheating going on. Now, here's the great story about this. His explanation is that somebody urinated in the barn and had something in their system, and the horse ate the hay that he had urinated on, and that's how he got it. Let me tell you what, I have got a new excuse for anything I ever do wrong. A new excuse. Karen, it wasn't me. Somebody urinated, and I ate some grass, and that's what it was. That is a tale. Anyway, it just cracks me up, these horse racing people. I think it takes a little bit of the edge. I don't know, to make it more interesting, the Belmont, or less interesting. I don't know which one it was. All right, that is 3 things presented by Hand Law. Let us move to Leonardo's at Millhopper quick picks. And we got a lot more qualifiers. I have got a large sheet with a lot of names on it. I got to start cutting them up now because we're going to draw them next Friday, okay? Not this Friday, but next Friday. We're going to draw a winner for, again, we do this thing in segments, but we're going to give you, so that means you've got 2 more chances to qualify. No, 3. Today, Friday, and the following Monday to qualify, and then we'll put you all, and we've got a ton of qualifiers. People have been very responsive. We did this week because Sam Houston State beat, and came with a great game from what I've been told. I didn't watch it. Sam Houston State did win that game, and now I've gone blank on who they beat. But anyway, it doesn't really matter. So we had 5 qualifiers. 5 people qualified, I believe. Darlene Berry, Drew Berry, they both went with Sam Houston State. George Luttrell, Ryan Emerson, and Matthew Fail, who is not like his name. He doesn't fail. He qualifies almost every time we have one of these things. All right, so here we go. We got another qualifier for you. And keep going, because the more you qualify, the more your names go in the hat. So keep at it. Pretty simple. We've been trying to keep this simple, and people seem to like that. How many runs will the Gators score Thursday? Now, on Thursday, the Gators are in the SEC tournament. It is an early game, noon game. They will play the winner of Mississippi State Ole Miss, who play on Wednesday. How many runs do the Gators score? Just give me a number. It's like that episode of Celebrity Jeopardy. Just write down a number. 3, I think, was what Sean Connery wrote. But anyway, so just give me a number. How many runs do you think the Gators will score in that Thursday game? Pretty simple. All right. And we appreciate so much Leonardo's and all the great work they're doing with our tournament, as well as being a sponsor here. We love them. We love Kyle. And we do also love Adam Brewer from Adam's Rib Co. to go, where they're wide open. We're actually going to go over there Wednesday and shoot a little commercial, so you'll be able to see that in a week or so. I don't know how fast can you turn it over, Evan? Yeah, we'll see. But our Gator of the weekend, it's so obvious, I think by what I've been saying, is Julia Cottrell. And it's not just that she hit the walk-off homer that gave Florida a share of the SEC championship. It's what happened before it. It's an amazing story, and I'm sure many of you have heard the story about what happened. First of all, she was sick all week, didn't practice at all. So that's why she didn't catch very much on the weekend. She had sinus problems, which is what I'm going through. Maybe she gave it to me, even though I never actually spoke to her. I'm kidding, of course. So she ties the game with this incredible slide. And I've always wondered why more people don't do this. You're sliding into a base, they're going to make the tag, you fake with the left and you go with the right. And guess what? When you do that, they don't see that, and that gets to the bag or the plate first. Run scores, caller safe. Florida tied the game. As she gets up, Charlotte Eccles is celebrating, and her batting helmet hits her right in the mouth, and she chips a tooth. Now, there were stories that she had a tooth and a half missing, but I saw her smile. It was only the half tooth, but it was half the tooth is gone. Now, at that point, I would have been rushing to the dentist. I would have been going, I'm done. I'm done with the game. No, she wasn't done. She looked for her piece of tooth. I don't know if she ever found it. And then it came up in the bottom of the 7th inning with the tying run on second. And instead of tying the game, she drilled it onto the pitching cage there. What do you call it? The big roof there for a 2-run homer to win the game, and celebrated like crazy. She may be my Gator of the year after that story. That's a great one. And you know what's great too is that that's not great that we're done, but I know that I'm not feeling great, so I'm happy that we're done. I'm ready to get out of here and go do some other things. I appreciate our great guests. Travis McGriff was tremendous. Chris Lee, like I said, I've never met Chris. He was recommended to me by my friend Braden Gall, and he was tremendous. And we'll get him on again as we get closer to Florida Vanderbilt football. But we got Vandy out of the way, and it was good to talk some baseball with him. All right, so Friday we'll have Jeff Cardozo and Robbie Andrews. My plan, I think that's what we're going to do. It looks like that's what we're going to do. And all of our great sponsors, of course, this, that, and the other, and all these other great things coming up. We got to get out of here for right now. Until next time, I am Pat Dooley. I am deep. I'm way back, and I am out of here.